Hey everybody, welcome back to Endure, the Athlete Story. On today's show, we have Eric Degolier. Eric is the founder of Body Rocket, a new product which measures live drag force in real time for cyclists and triathletes. So the idea being you can see your aerodynamics, your CDA in live time and how different things you do, different equipment choices affect that. So no doubt it's going to be a game changer in the industry. In this episode, Eric takes us through his idea of how he came up with it and his way of doing it being different to others, and the athletes that he has on board in partnership with this product being launched next year. So really exciting times for the Body Rocket team, and it was great to chat to Eric and get the insight of behind the scenes and the ideas and their vision for the future. So they're currently crowdfunding at the moment. There's a link in the description below if that sounds like something you're interested in, or getting to know more about it. You can find the information below. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this episode and let us know what you think of it. Share it on with anyone who you think would be interested. Any of those friends that could be doing with some free speed and better aerodynamics, then this is a podcast for them. This episode is brought to you by EJX2 Coaching. I'm a triathlon and endurance coach. I also provide lactate testing for anyone based in the northwest of Ireland. So if you're interested in getting a chat about your training, if you have an event coming up, or if you're looking for some lactate testing, then please get in touch. I'd love to get a chat to you and love to see how I can help you out towards your goals. So don't hesitate to drop me an email on ejx2coaching@hotmail.com or find me on Facebook and Instagram at ejx2coaching. But without further ado, enjoy the episode. Cheers. Eric Degolier, welcome to Endure, the Athlete Story. How's things?
Thank you. Doing good, thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show and giving us your time. So first off, Eric, if you could just explain to us, you have a new product hopefully coming to the market soon in the cycling and triathlon world. If you could just explain to us what that is and what that means for the market.
Sure. So we Body Rocket is bringing the first direct force drag measurement device to market. So I guess a little bit of background on that, and maybe myself to start with. So my history is in the bike power meter industry. I worked at PowerTap in the very early days before coming over to the UK and kind of moving off on a different path, and eventually hit upon this idea and really wanted to get back into the cycling world. But I've been watching the space around aerometers since the late 2000s, and there were these ideas around what was called virtual elevation field testing for aerodynamics, and I really like the idea and the value of it, but just looking at it, my background in power meters, I just came to the conclusion that if it wasn't being measured, it really was going to struggle to become a consumer product. So I sat down and decided to figure out a way that we could directly measure drag force out in the real world and make something that I really believe could be a consumer product. So I did that and tried to flog it around into the early 2000s around London and didn't really get a whole lot of traction with it, but filed the patents and kind of kept on working out on nights and weekends. And then of course the industry kind of grew up around that. Aerodynamics was huge all through the last decade and has influenced wheels and frames and helmets and everything else. And then this idea of these testing devices kept on coming back up, and there's been a handful of them that have come on the market and had some promise. They've kind of gone the way that I expected it to go, in the sense that they've really struggled to get much traction. And it's not that you can't make them work; it's just that you can't make them work easily and without a lot of technical knowledge. And so it's just struggled to be a consumer product. So what we're doing differently is by directly measuring that drag force we have a fully measured equation, if you will. So instead of the virtual elevation devices that have to estimate rolling resistance and drivetrain losses and assume that your weight stays constant, we take all that out of the equation. And so we just have your direct force drag measure and your airspeed and air density. And that's the exact equation and the same metrics that you're measuring in a wind tunnel. And so you can go out there and ride through 6 inches of mud and still expect to get a correct drag force measurement, because we're only looking at the drag force itself. So that's the concept and what we've been building. And it's certainly a much more complex product to get to market. And we've had a team that's grown and we've built over the last 4 years. But this year we've got that out on the road and working with athletes. And yeah, it's been quite exciting to get to that point and start seeing the value of what we're doing. And we're now at the point where we're building the team more to take that into a consumer product. So right now it's still a prototype, and we're providing that sort of value with athletes, which I think I'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, it's sort of another year's journey to take that to a consumer product that we believe we can get out there and sort of bring aerodynamics, which has been this sort of lofty goal of that only the elite professionals can really get to bring that out to consumers everywhere. So if you're considering a power meter, we'd hope you would be considering this as well, because it's got at least as much potential to make you fast.
Cool. Sounds really exciting. And especially that last bit you said, like, if it can give someone more speed and quicker times in races and better race results, then
that's the game, isn't it?
It's a no-brainer. But we'll get back to the product in a minute, Eric. But if you just take us back to your involvement in sport, or why that, have you got any sporting background in cycling itself?
Yeah. So I definitely come from the cycling side of the sport, and had raced at sort of elite national level for quite a while in my early 20s before it finally dawned on me that I wasn't an endurance athlete. I was a sprinter, and I made the switch over to track cycling for my late 20s, and was fortunate enough to be able to actually represent the U.S. at the 2004 Paralympic Games in Athens, where I was a pilot with a blind athlete, Matt King, in the sprint and kilo events. So yeah, still absolutely the epitome of my racing career. But I grew up like a lot of cyclists, dreaming to go to the Tour de France, and just took a long time to realize that actually I was really good for about 10 or 20 seconds, and then I was done.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
But
so what went from there, and then took my engineering degree, and kind of my first jobs were in the cycling industry. So
yeah, so you have a background in high performance sports, you could say. Like you've trained and competed at a high level, and obviously that knowledge, taking that with you, combined with an engineering background, is that where the idea for Body Rocket came from?
Yeah, for sure. It really all came together. I mean, I've got the passion for the sport. I'm a lifelong cyclist. I still ride to work most days, and raced for 20 odd years. And my degree was in engineering, and immediately put that to use in the cycling industry as soon as I got my degree and went into industry. And so that I've been, those things sort of put me in the right place to be able to do this. I had that experience in measurement with the power meters. I very much understood the value of aerodynamics, and I remember being at the Olympic training centers in 2004 and being really shocked that they had nothing. Like, elite amateurs didn't really have access to aerodynamics then. It was very much just the sort of Tour de France leaders that were going into the wind tunnels in 2004. Yeah, and almost by chance, I did my master's degree in engineering design at Brunel University here in London. Almost probably not by chance, because I had kind of had the background already, but I did my master's thesis on a novel measurement device, and it was around torque measurement, so kind of fit more into the power meter world, but exposed me to a lot of the fundamentals that I'd need to do this, do Body Rocket. So yeah, I think I had the right tools when I sat down to solve that problem in the late 2000s. I had the right tools to do it, to come up with what we've done.
Mm-hmm. And can you remember an exact moment where you were like, this is what I want to build, or was it a slow development of the product?
It was slow. I mean, the first prototype I did the math, and then I sat down, I was like, I think this is it. I can directly measure things this way. So I built the first prototype with probably 200 quid worth of parts off of eBay. I had like a roller bearing and a cheap S-bar load cell, and kind of hooked it all together and put it on a trainer in my bedroom, and sat on and kind of convinced myself that the concept worked. But that opened my eyes to some of the other challenges that would be involved in this. And so I kind of dropped it for a while, and ended up moving back to London. I was working in North Wales at the time, moving back to London, and it wouldn't leave me alone. I kept thinking about it. So I eventually started researching some of the fundamentals of the measurement device that I'd need to make, because nothing existed that fit my needs in commercially. Designed that, and kind of tried to flog it around and start a company with it, and didn't really go anywhere. So I kind of parked it again, and met someone else who was quite interested. We picked it up as sort of a nights and weekends kind of hobby. Started winning some entrepreneurship awards, and so it was sort of a 10-year, before it became a serious thing. It was sort of a 10-year journey of something that I'd work on for a while, and then be like, I'm kind of getting tired of this, and just taking up my weekends and stuff. And then something would happen, like would win an award or something, and I'd be like, oh, it's got value, it's got legs, and I just keep going on it. So yeah.
So it is it's a long journey, a long process. It wasn't just here's an idea and then you make the product. It has been you had to be play the patient game and stick with it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what kept me coming back to it is just I get how valuable aerodynamics is to cycling and triathlon, anything where you're going quick, and our technology would work across things like luge and skeleton, and even sort of downhill skiing and stuff. So there's just anywhere where you're going fast, particularly where your body is the largest component of that. Wind tunnels and CFD are just kind of crappy solutions, because they're sort of a point in time. So if you take it back to the power analogy, you could measure power in the 1980s and the early 1990s. You just had to go into an exercise lab and hop on a Monarch erg, and you could get a power reading. And if you were an Olympian, you were probably doing that. But it was a really, really small part of your training schedule. It was just sort of going in once a month and kind of seeing if you could benchmark some progress. And that's kind of what a wind tunnel is when you think about a body. A wind tunnel is great if you're designing cars, and you can go in there and you can spend a lot of time designing one and then make 1,000 of them. But that's not cyclists. The solution for the last couple of decades has been put every cyclist in the wind tunnel, and that that works for a small percentage of people who have the means to do it. But it's even really inconvenient for them. And the next day, when you're out on the road, you're not entirely sure if you're still in that same position, because the advice will be so subtle, like shrug your shoulders or bring your head back a little bit. And so it's not the right solution. The right solution is the same thing as power, right? A Monarch erg is not what helps cyclists train to power. A power meter on your bike is what helps cyclists train to power. And in the same sense, an aerodynamic drag measurement system on your bike and real-time data that you can average over your ride and get learnings from and see your progress over a period of time is the right thing when you've got this body that's fluid and it's changing shape as you're riding and as you're fatiguing and as you're in different conditions, whether it be a crosswind or going up and down hills. Your body's aerodynamics is changing all the time, and we're treating it like it's a car, and you can test it once and be done.
Makes a lot of sense, and it makes it even more exciting to see the product and how it is in its final stages. So tell us about the product and what can we expect. Like, do you expect every rider to have it on in the Tour de France, or just in time trials, or do they use it in training? And how does it look on the bike? How does it fit on the bike? Sorry, a lot of questions there.
I might not get all those. You might have to come back and send those with me. But I think it's a progression. With power meters, it was something that you trained with for a while, and then it was something that the Tour de France riders were saying, I need this. I don't need training. I need it in my racing as well. And so we'll start with the real clear use cases, time trialists and long distance triathlon, where it's not draft legal. They're the two places where you need it all the time. But it's super important for everyone as well. And so I think it's a bit of a longer journey to be on every cyclist in the peloton, and having that sort of measurement all time. But yeah, I see it going in that same direction. And in the same sense of power was a really clunky thing to use in 2000 when you got a plot of your power versus time.
Mhm.
And it took a while to sort of develop those metrics and training stress score and functional threshold power and the things that make power actionable and understandable for people without having to get a PhD in exercise physiology.
Mhm.
And so I see those kind of things being really important in getting to the level where everybody thinks about getting power on their bike, in the same sense that if you're going to go out and buy a 4 or 5 grand bike, you're probably also considering whether or not you're going to buy a power meter at this
Mhm.
point. So yeah, I think that we can take that same journey, and I think we definitely offer that same kind of value.
Yeah, cool. And in terms of its looks or its functionality on the bike, is it easily put on? Can anybody just attach to their bike if you have simple bike mechanic skills, or how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah. So our target there, and we are still developing that product, but our target
Mhm.
there is that anybody who's comfortable, say, swapping out a stem on their bike would be comfortable putting our system on. So
Mhm.
enough skills that
Yeah.
you're going to take out a somewhat critical part of your bike and swap it out with something. But at the end of the day, it's just tightening a few
Yeah.
bolts. The system isolates the athlete from the bike at all the touch points, and so we're looking at the forces that are transferring between your bike and you. And so you can think of that as measuring how hard your bike is pushing you through the wind, which would be the equal and opposite of how hard the wind is pushing back on you, and that's your drag force.
Mhm.
So to do that and do that in a way that's compatible across a wide range of bikes, we've got a sensor that fits between the seat post and the saddle, and a sensor that replaces the risers on your aero bar, so mounts on the base bar, and then the top side of it mounts on your aero bars, and then pedals at the feet. So,
Cool. And with every cyclist, its weight is an issue. Is there any? Have you had to really think about that and how much it would weigh extra, or is it
yeah,
minimal because you're replacing
yeah.
things, or?
So our target for our first product is a 500 gram weight on the bike. So it's not insignificant, but it's also within the context of time trial. When you look at time trial bikes versus road bikes, I
Yeah.
think there's a reasonably good understanding now that weight is not the biggest concern. And if you can get any sort of an aerodynamic benefit off that, then the weight to gain is generally
Yeah.
worth it. So yes, there will be some there, and there's plenty of scope for improvement there. But I think already at that point it'd be quite easy to make a good case for it and say, yeah, you're going to add 500 grams to your bike, but you're going to drop, on average, 10, 20 watts of power required to drive that on a flat road. You can make that case
Yeah. Yeah.
for let's say any course.
Yeah. As long as the advantages outweigh it, then it's again a no-brainer. So.
Yeah, and when we talk to people at the professional level, which is really where we're focusing on right now, we realize people who are paying to go into wind tunnels right now are our first customers and the people who we need to engage with at this point. But when you talk to them, the biggest problem with getting a lot of athletes to adopt aerodynamic benefits or benefits of a lot of different types is that they can't see the benefit very discreetly.
Hmm.
And so power is one where that's kind of changed, right? You can convince an athlete to train to power because you can see the changes and the benefits. And so when you tell an athlete that they need to do something to stay slightly more aerodynamic, and this is probably more true in cycling than it is in triathlon, but if they can't really perceive that, it's hard to get professional athletes to adopt that and to believe that. But when you've got actionable data right in front of you saying, yeah, when you shrugged your shoulders, that was worth percentage gain in your aerodynamics, then you can get those people to buy into that a lot more. So yeah, there'll be proof there. And I think for a lot of people, that's what's going to be really, really exciting about Body Rocket is right now you buy a skin suit or an aero helmet, and you're just totally reliant on the
Yeah.
marketing claims of people.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be a way that you can look at those things and actually understand it, and understand if it's really helping you.
Hmm. Yeah. Sounds good. And have you got any idea of what the price would be for for someone buying it off the shelf?
Yeah, so we're targeting £2,000 for an introductory price.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so certainly, premium to power meters. But then if you look back in the history of power meters, that's an SRM cost more than that when it started.
Yeah.
So I think,
Yeah.
we're going to have to walk that same journey. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be, people who really want this in the beginning, and we'll begin to be able to walk that price down as we continue to refine the product and hit bigger volumes as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned like working with athletes and partnering with athletes, and it's a coincidence that today I'm chatting to you, just seen before we jumped on this call that Gustav Iden put up a post today that they'll be like partnering with Body Rocket and excited to use the product, as well as Kristian Blumenfelt had a post up yesterday. So two big names in the triathlon world. Are you excited to work with those kind of world-class athletes and get their approval and their feedback of how it actually works?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty incredible. We set out this year to have a device that we could get out there and show the value of the data. So we were proven that it worked in a wind tunnel, and our objective for this year was to get that out on the road and be able to work with athletes with the goal of getting some longer term contracts to work with some of the top athletes. I mean, to say that we expected to get a couple of world champions, certainly wasn't the case. We're over the moon as a team to be working with Kristian and Gustav. You couldn't pick two better athletes to work with. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I think Olav reached out to us. He had an eye on the technology we're developing and reached out to us last year sometime. We actually said, hold on, we're not quite ready, we'll give you a call when we're ready. So he was one of the first people we reached out to then when we were ready to give demos. But same thing kind of across the world of professional cycling. We talk to any performance director. They've used 4 or 5 competitive products. Some may still be trying to get some value out, some may have kind of given up because they're frustrated, but they all see what we're doing and say, we see that you're doing something different, and we think that it makes a lot more sense and it's going to be a lot more viable. So yeah, really excited to be moving into that next stage now where we are. We've got that deal, and we're going to be working with Kristian and Gustav, in the goal of making them even more competitive in defending their Ironman championships, this fall. And the learning we're going to get along the way is going to just be incredible. So it's sort of a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, it's awesome, and a really exciting product. And when can we expect to see it on the market for?
So we're targeting a launch in spring of next year.
Awesome, cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, so say it's a really exciting product, the whole concept, the whole idea, free speed. It's exciting for the cycling and triathlon world. So I don't want to keep any more of your time, Eric, and appreciate you for coming on the call, and wish you all the best and over the next year getting it organized and getting the product out there.
Great. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to meet you and happy to talk. Happy to come back anytime.
Cheers. Thanks,
All
Eric.
right. Thank you. Yep.
So, show's over. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Eric. Can't wait personally to see how this product develops and how the Norwegian team with Kristian, Gustav, and Olav adopt it and put it into practice. And it'll be exciting to see what they can do with that. And it's really exciting that this is a product that potentially anyone can have very shortly. So really exciting times ahead for real-time aerodynamics and cycling. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review, please share it on, and again, you can find more information on Body Rocket's crowdfunding campaign in the description below. Just click the link and that'll give you everything you need to know. Cheers, see you next time.